Welcome to AlphaTalk, where we discuss all things auto. From F&I to industry updates, AlphaTalk is here to keep you in the loop.
Welcome to AlphaTalk. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Carol Docalavich. She is the COO and president of OttoMoto. Carol, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, of course. So, Carol, we've known each other for a long time in the industry. I really, appreciate you taking the time to come out to Utah, be on the podcast. So, those of you who don't know Carol, I'd love for her to give you kind of, some of her. I think you have a very diverse background, and not only just in the auto space, but just as an entrepreneur. So, we've got a lot of listeners out there where they focus in the auto space, but I know that they have their hands in a lot of different pots, and I think that they'd be really interested in hearing your background.
That's your way of calling me old.
I did not. I said very seasoned veteran.
There we go. I like that. I like that seasoned. So yeah, I started my career in the franchise industry. So think service industry with different types of franchises. We ended up selling to Service Master. So
okay.
We had locations in 17 countries, a few thousand folks that we put in business. And then I owned a coffee import-export, travel industry, real estate during the 2008 crash. Sold to Blackstone, a fairly decent-sized portfolio, and then went into the freight industry. Built a couple of different software companies along the way, and we were the first to bring franchise leads to the web.
Okay.
So that does actually age me quite a bit. We were newspaper to the web, and then got into auto about 5 years ago with OttoMoto and helped to build out that platform, and and then started working with folks like you guys.
Yeah. Don't worry. I think I was my junior year of college before I had my first cell phone. So I'm, I'll age myself as well. For our listeners who don't know a lot about OttoMoto, do you mind kind of giving a background? Like, what is OttoMoto? How does it help dealers? What does OttoMoto do?
Sure. So OttoMoto is a lender aggregator. So we are a platform that creates the opportunity for lenders and dealers to connect, not just in auto, though. We have power sports, marine, aircraft, and RV. We primarily are focused on the independent space.
Okay.
And the reason for that is we felt like the independent space didn't have the same tools that the franchise space has access to. And we wanted to give them an opportunity to learn to be better lender partners and to understand what lenders need and what they require and the compliance behind it so that they had more lending opportunities. And, that is probably the number one complaint in the independent space, especially in the auto space, is that they get their dealer's license and then they don't know how to go get lenders, and then lenders don't give them a chance. They get a bad rap, and there's a lot of really good independent dealers out there.
Yeah, we had a conversation earlier today before the podcast, and you had mentioned, just the overall scope of the independent dealership market. What did you say? Was it 60,000?
There's about 60,000. If you read, it depends on the publication, right? I think NIADA says 48,000. They're probably talking about people that pay to be a member of NIADA. And then if you look at IBIS, they say it's 154,000.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's a collective of power sports, RV, all the different independents. But in the auto industry, it's probably somewhere between 60 and 65,000 that are, everything from, they call them pot lots, to the ones that look like the franchise industry.
Right. You've had a very diverse background in a lot of different industries. You have now you can add the automotive space to that resume, that very impressive resume. You're very close to those dealers, those independent dealers. You've seen them, you've been out in them.
Yeah.
What is it about the auto space that makes it so enticing for maybe a young entrepreneur or just an entrepreneur in general to join the auto space? What is that like, to have 100, and I don't know any other, I'm sure there are, but I can't, if you looked at just like one industry and saw 154,000 independent locations in that industry. I mean, that's pretty impressive. So what does that draw, do you think, from your experience?
I think from the ones that I've spoken to, it was, when you ask that question, how'd you get started? Either Papa had a dealership, right? PhD, or, they wanted a way to not work for the man, right? They wanted to get into their own business. They felt like, I could start flipping cars. They can go to an auction, and it's not terribly difficult to get a dealer's license. And then I think most of them, where I think what was my draw was pulling from my years in the franchise industry. They are really incredible entrepreneurs. I mean, if you think about it, they're responsible for marketing. They're responsible for sales. They're responsible for accounting. I mean, they literally, in a lot of these independent spaces, they do every job to keep the business afloat.
Yeah.
And so they're just scrappy, good entrepreneurs, and I think that's overlooked. And if you consider that there's 3 used cars to every 1 new car sold in the United States, they're a huge part of our GDP. Mm-hmm. And I don't think they're given the respect that they're due. And the opportunities for what they can bring in addition, I think they're underrated.
Yeah. Well, you can tell just, how you talk about independent dealers specifically, that there's a lot of passion there.
Oh, yeah.
I'd love to understand how, you've been at the helm of OttoMoto for quite a while, kind of trying to meet those dealers' needs. How specifically do you think OttoMoto helps deliver those results to those dealers? That entrepreneur who has the drive, but maybe doesn't understand the business, or even, and this isn't taking anything away from any dealer, but maybe that business acumen to say, okay, I'm really good at my marketing and maybe selling, but I'm not good at the bookkeeping or the execution of the business. So what is it specifically that OttoMoto does to help a dealer out?
So to be very clear, we're not a DMS, so we don't do the dealer management piece of that. So that would be their accounting, their inventory,
right,
those types of things, or even their CRM. But we can integrate with all of those and make it very seamless. But we are the powerhouse from the perspective of lenders.
Yeah. And
really helping lenders to understand what the independents need and giving them the opportunity to have fraud tools, to have ID verification, to have the ability to assess the value of a vehicle, income verification, and those in one URL and one opportunity for them to do a deal and never leave that screen. They don't have to click outside of OttoMoto. We have a menu for product, right?
Yeah.
For I'll give you a plug here, Bryan, for Alpha products, and really to give them a way to save time, because that's the one thing they do not have, especially in those small mom and pop lots. They just don't have that. So you've got the intuition and the ability to be that scrappy entrepreneur and keep it going. But what you need is somebody that cares about saving your time.
Right.
And that's what OttoMoto does, and it connects them, because if they can get deals done, they can go on to the next vehicle. I mean, let's face it, they eat what they kill, right?
Yeah.
It's always that next deal.
Well, and I think what's unique too about OttoMoto is that, it's not only just that ease of use. I think that's such a powerful tool for a dealer, that ease of use and time savings, right? Because a lot of times, even with these independent dealers, they might be a sole operator,
Yeah,
they're the ones.
Absolutely.
I've been there where I've seen, it's like the owner's out there washing cars, doing a deal when a customer comes in, doing the financing, ordering the supplies for the breaker. I mean, doing it all. So there is something to be said there. But I think the other side is, a lot of times I feel like with independent dealers, they don't know what they don't have access to.
Absolutely.
And they're not able to maximize their deal. And maybe it's $200 here or $500 here. On the one end, for the profit generation, you add that up, and then now you're, that's another car that you could buy, or that's another location that you've saved up for, and now you're in 2 locations, and really you're kind of creating some of those legacy systems for them.
Absolutely. And really not just streamlining their daily process, but giving them the opportunity to have access to lenders that don't typically do business with independent dealers. Yeah. And that because of OttoMoto and DealFI, which is our virtual F&I arm,
right,
that has given these dealers the opportunity to level up and to offer better vehicles, better product opportunities. And ultimately, what that really does is it gives the consumer more lending opportunities. And that's really what we want to do, right? Certainly we want to serve the lender and we want to serve the dealer. But if we can give consumers more lending opportunities, then everybody wins.
Yeah. And I think it's, so much more important, especially in these times with inflation being so high, you think half a point here on an interest rate may not be a big deal, or a point it is to a consumer who's, that change in payment really could push them over into a payment where they can't really afford, and then we're dealing with defaults, down the road, but they still need a vehicle, right? So they're going to go through that process. The other side, and this is, giving OttoMoto a plug as well, is I really appreciate that, because there are tools that do some of what OttoMoto does. Not only do you have to go to 7 different websites, but that's 7 different subscriptions that you've got to buy. And that's a huge expense too for the dealer, when those monthly reoccurring operating costs. So what you guys are doing is really serving that dealer partner in a way to say, we will be that solution for you, help maximize your deals, help get you into opportunities that you'd never have an opportunity to do if they just looked at you from the eyeball test, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to do it in a way that's going to also be affordable for you as a dealer, like
absolutely,
building that business. And I think that your franchise background really kind of shines through on that side, where it's same thing, I'm sure, in that space. Limited operating budget, need to maximize every tool to get there. And it's just a credit to what you guys have brought to the market.
Thank you. We think so.
So there's a lot of different solutions that OttoMoto can provide to a dealer. There's a lot of different, and I think that OttoMoto is pretty unique in the marketplace. I think that there's probably some copycats that have tried to do some similar, maybe pieces of it, right? So taking that out of it, just your overall, from a executive perspective as an entrepreneur, there's always something new coming out, right? And especially with AI, technology is changing so much, and it's such a buzzword. What are some of the pitfalls that dealers need to maybe watch out for when they're looking for a technology provider or partner in that space?
Really good question. So we'll stay with the thought on AI, because that word is thrown around a lot. And, what is AI, and is it true agentic AI, and, what it really means. And so a lot of these platforms that claim that they have that, it's really just machine learning, right? And it's limited to what it's been taught. And so although we have AI aspects, it's very much about being upfront with the dealer as to what that will do for you and the limits that it will do it. And one of the things that we find to be most valuable that we've created is the lender verification.
Oh, yeah.
So making sure that dealers understand that lenders really only want to see applications that they would actually fund.
Yeah.
So OttoMoto does that. It verifies against the lender's buy box and helps the dealer to start quickly understanding what that lender's looking for. So we're not wasting valuable time for the lenders. And a lot of these dealers don't know that on some of the platforms, when you send these applications over and over and over to a lender and they get cut off, and they're like, I was cut off by whatever lender, that's because you sent them things that they never would have bought, and you wasted their, the time of the underwriter and that sort of thing. So it was one of the very first things that we built at OttoMoto. And so that's time efficiency, but it's also AI learning, right? So that makes it more efficient. And, and now we have the opportunity to look at, help them look at what's actually on their lot, through their inventory, and even more quickly assess which lenders that they would be able to do that deal with. And through DealFI, we're in all 50 states, but we focus right now strongly on about 22 states. Okay. And that's purposeful to make sure that chicken egg, that we're bringing dealers and lenders together so that it's efficient and we're feeding the lenders correctly, and also the dealers are getting deals that are bought, whether it's subprime and near prime or super prime. But it's really verifying that to our lenders that our dealers care.
Mm-hmm.
And when dealers start understanding that they're not there just to do a loan, but they actually have a portfolio and they have creditors and
Right.
they have people that they answer to so that they have more money to loan, it becomes an ecosystem where everybody really respects the process. And that's a lot of what we're trying to do here.
Yeah.
Let's change the understanding of the players, and let's actually speak about what's important, which is buyers need to buy cars,
Right.
and lenders need portfolios that perform, and dealers need money to put cars on the road.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's really talked about enough, certainly not at your typical small independent dealer. It is for franchise or your, we call it the independents that have made it.
Yeah.
The ones that have been in business 3+ years and they've now started to acquire lender recognition. But you've got thousands and thousands and thousands, probably more than 15,000 small independents that don't have any access to that type of lending. So it's really, we want those type of dealers to come forward so that we can help them to become that kind of lender partner. And we're the only platform out there doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really smart, and I think that it just shows your commitment to that independent dealer.
Absolutely.
Because you're not looking at them as necessarily a byproduct of the deal to get done. It's not they're trying to put out bad deals or just waste time or just throwing as our CFO says, spaghetti at the wall, right? And hopefully it sticks. It's an education piece.
Absolutely.
They have what they have as far as the customer and the collateral that's coming in, right?
Sure.
But there's somebody out there who will buy that. There's a credit spectrum for every person, for the most part, to come in, right?
Yeah.
And I think to your point, like the OttoMoto's done a really good job of making sure that dealers are educated, because the ones that want to perform and want to be better and they're truly entrepreneurs will embrace that technology and embrace that education to get to that next level.
Right.
And you're really just becoming the conduit for that.
Yeah. And so I think just to round out that point is that when you're looking at all these different tools, is do they talk?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we continuing the silo, which is very much this industry? And coming from the industries that I came from, especially the franchise industry, because you have to be so connected in the franchise industry to have thousands of businesses in 17 countries, right? Things have to be done a certain way, and everybody has to do them the same way, and that's how franchises succeed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think bringing that same mentality to this industry, and we're not for everyone, and we're not trying to be for everyone, and it's really, looking for tools that really do what they say they do, and connecting them so that you work in a purposeful manner every day, as opposed to continuing to be siloed. Because there's lots of great tools out there.
Yeah.
But what OttoMoto does is it really has become the community for the tools that are necessary, for you to get the deal done. And, I think we try to be super transparent about that. And the tools that are on OttoMoto are purposeful to getting a deal done in a very compliant way. I mean, let's talk about the lending industry for just 1 second. It's been a nightmare since COVID, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of lenders go out of business, and it's continuing. And, unfortunately, the space that's been hurt the most is the subprime industry,
right?
Which is where a lot of these independents play, right? It's where their businesses lie, and it's where they start. And so I think, having a purposeful partner that's looking for lenders that understand that you're trying to be better, and that you want the skill set that keeps them safe so that they can securitize and keep their creditors happy, then again, we're creating that community of like-minded people that want to do business together. And our goal is to have, better rates for our dealers, to have better floor plan rates, for this to come together as a collective and say, your portfolio performs better because you did this with DealFi and OttoMoto, and therefore they're due that respect and they're due better pricing.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I know you shared with me too. You mentioned it that hey, we might not be for everybody.
Yeah.
But if you look at that market share and you say, let's take the high side. Let's just say it's 120,000 independent dealers, 10%. At least 10, and you've shared this with me, there's got to be at least 10% of the market that wants to really level up. I think it's much stronger than that. But that's a significant amount of dealers who are now kind of changing the way that independent dealers are viewed.
Yeah.
That is a huge market force that you guys are actually driving. And I think that that's a really impressive goal and a really great thing for our industry.
Yeah, if you think about the movies about it, they're always in plaid, polyester with slick hair, right?
Yeah.
And I think let's don't change that persona. Let's just change the way they do business.
I love it.
And
good, I don't have to throw out my polyester suit, is what you're telling me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good.
You can keep it.
You mentioned DealFi a number of times. You recently went through an acquisition to acquire DealFi. Talk about DealFi for a minute. How does that help support the automotive platform for our listeners who may not know DealFi and what DealFi does?
So DealFi is a really its own aggregator of lenders, but it is a virtual F&I solution. So DealFi can be your F&I office. It can be your connection to lenders. It could be in the franchise space. I mean, we have franchise dealers that they don't have a lot of F&I talent in subprime maybe,
right,
but they've got a lot of applications, so they would use DealFi to work those applications. It has a lot of different applications, not to overuse that word, in this industry, but it's really the education hub for dealers and for lenders. And so for us, the unique part of that was not only was it a business that had been established and was doing very well in the industry, but it gave us the opportunity to bring it into the fold, make it part of the community, and help lenders to even feel safer.
Yeah.
Because it's a very compliant way for you to do business with independents. We guarantee title.
Yeah.
We take care of all the remittance of product, all the cancellations, and along the way they have to use fraud tools. They have to do ID verify. They have to verify the value of the vehicle, and it becomes a rote behavior, right? If they know that they have to do each of these things every time they do a deal, and the lender knows they're going to do that, and we kind of stand in the middle, it gives them the opportunity to broaden. Like we're about to announce a super prime lender that will only do business if you're an independent dealer on OttoMoto and DealFi.
And that's because of the safety net that they have.
The safety net, right.
And, I think guaranteeing title is really strong. I think the other parts are, and you can do that because you have this amazing technology platform.
Right. To
say, look, so if you're a lender listening to this, there's zero risk for you to look at DealFi and OttoMoto. And it gets, we've had some conversation too. It gets the opportunity for one point of contact to have, and when I say one point, for DealFi to really be the aggregator over thousands of dealers across the country that are in that independent space.
That want to be in that kind of community. Yeah.
And let's face it, if you're a sole proprietor or you have a smaller shop, maybe you're doing 40 or less cars a month, there might be, do you want to go out and hire somebody? That's a
Absolutely.
huge, overhead expense, right? Where there might be a better way to do this. And again, you're helping that independent dealer kind of level up where they now can have a dedicated finance office without necessarily having that overhead cost. And look, you're paying that guy probably if he's sitting there watching YouTube videos or if he's actually pushing product.
Right.
In this way, they're only paying DealFi on the deals that actually go through and get done.
That's right. Absolutely. They only pay for deals that get funded.
Yeah. That's such a strong, I think a lot of times, especially in the SaaS model, it's like a subscription and that's how everybody, and it's like, well, great if I'm not going to use it, or if I use it, maybe I just don't move that many cars, but man, if I can make an extra $1,000 on every car I do move, that's an extra car I can buy a month. I think that there are those smaller dealers who are kind of in that dilemma and they don't know where to turn.
Right.
And I know you've shared, and I don't know if you want to share on air, but you've had some tremendous success on that product sale, right? By doing that. So it's not just that you're providing a service that makes it easier, but you have really trained, great people who are selling the products for the dealer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We have an amazing team of, and we've got F&I specialists that reach out to us and say, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Like I want to, be in a remote situation where I can bring my skill set to more than one dealership. So yeah, we're really, really starting to grow.
And it's so interesting. We've talked about COVID ad nauseum on this show, in past episodes, as everybody did. So there was nothing else to talk about at the time. But it really has changed the way that we can do business. I think, the idea of OttoMoto or DealFI specifically, that virtual F&I office, it's like that'll never work. We're never going to be able to communicate effectively to a customer on protection products or on these back-end products because they're not sitting in a room. And what we found is it's not a tangible product anyway.
Right.
You're not digesting you don't get a user experience necessarily on a service contract until you go to the time of claim. And so I think that we're finding that COVID really did kind of set the bar for these types of opportunities and better ways of doing business.
Yeah, and I think also with that, I mean, virtual is no longer a dirty word, right? It used to be, and now they've and remote. Those things were like, you got to be in office at all time. And I think we found out that, you can do it this way and be very successful.
Yeah, and you touched on it there, and I want to ask this question. You've been an entrepreneur for a long time. You've also done a lot in the tech space for a long time, so outside of just the auto space. How do you think, just in your 5 years of being in the auto side, how have you seen, because I think OttoMoto has done a really good job. You guys have always kind of been on the forefront of like, this is where we think especially on the independent dealer side, this is a huge hole that needs, help. A big gap in service. But even iterations, we've worked together for a long time, and OttoMoto today is very different than it was. What are some of those biggest shifts in the technology sector in the auto space that you've seen during your career here?
Yeah, good question. So, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, I'm at almost every convention, it seems like. 180 days in hotels this year alone. So,
you just really like that convention food, don't you?
I guess. But I think what we're really seeing a shift toward is solidifying these tools where they don't work independently, because that's always been the auto space, or at least when I got in, you had a tool that did this and a tool, but nothing spoke to each other. And so you are starting to see where tools are learning that you can't be separate, because dealers just don't have the time. Even in the franchise space, they may buy it, but they're going to cancel that contract because they don't ever actually put it into their flow. And if you're not in a dealer's flow, they're not going to use your tool, and then you're going to get canceled.
It doesn't matter how great that tool is or what AI technology you put out there. If they're not using it and find it easy to use, it's just a lost subscription.
And it's power sports specifically, it's super siloed, right? So even your lenders are siloed. And so I think we're starting to see a big shift. It hasn't happened yet because everybody still thinks they're the biggest, best tool. You just need the one, and there's no such thing.
Yeah. I want to ask one final question of you, and it's just because I don't think we've had a guest with as diverse as entrepreneurial backgrold as you
just called me
have.
Old again. But anyway, go ahead.
Hey, it just means you've been very successful, right? And obviously you're very passionate about the auto industry. What is it about the auto industry from a technology perspective that makes you so passionate about bringing this kind of technology solution to your dealers? Like, what is it about? Because look, you could have done freight. I mean, you talked about it. Real estate. You've done franchisees. Like, there's
coffee.
Yeah, coffee. I know. I'm still wondering where that coffee, because I know you have connections in Colombia. So we'll say coffee. But what is it about the auto industry that gets you so, out of all the things that you've done, why the auto industry? What is it about it?
For me, it really was the draw to the entrepreneur first. I was intrigued. And I thought, it's interesting how there's tech, but there's not really tech. And the tech that's there, I mean, look, we can take our hats off. There's some really amazing legacy tech that's been out there for 20 years, right? And I think the tools that were built, they were right for their time. I don't think they have done a very good job of supporting the independent space. And I mean, we could get into franchise in another segment. I know enough to fill a thimble, but doesn't mean I won't talk about it. But the independent space, I really became passionate because I think the entrepreneurial spirit of these independent dealers, and just all the things that they do, they multitask like crazy. And then I love that they're the underdog. Right? There are very few large independents. They're mostly scrappy, 1, 2, 3 year if they make it, because 33% of them fail in the first year. And I think we can change that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's really what made me passionate. I mean, there's a lot of money to be made in this industry.
Yeah.
You know, I think the second part of that for me would be, you know, I haven't stepped onto a used car lot until I did this since I was like 17 years old, when I bought my first car by myself. And so literally a really, really long time between, you know, the first time till I started, you know, and got involved in automotive. And not much had changed.
Yeah.
They kind of all still look the same. And I thought, you know, this is an opportunity to really make a difference, as cliche as that might sound. And really all my past lives, my past careers, it's always been something that I'd never done before.
Right.
And so that part doesn't scare me, because I always say, how hard could it be? And then I wish I'd never said, how hard could it be? This one has just about broken me. But I think it's more because it's such a large industry and has so many moving parts, no pun intended. But it's really the passion, and I don't think you stay in it if you don't love it.
Yeah.
And then the people. I mean, my gosh, I've met some of the most amazing, inappropriate, I mean, some of the most incredible stories in this industry. But I think overall it's just a huge part of our culture. Right. And I thought, you know, I'd love to be a part of that.
Yeah. And I think that's, you know, again, I've said it a lot on the show, but so if you're a listener and you're either a small independent dealer out there, or you're a finance person, maybe you're working at a large, you know, franchise store, and you're like, man, I just don't want to do this anymore. I know I could do this on my own. There are solutions out there like OttoMoto that can make you successful, where you don't have to have all the answers. I think, you know, even I have, you know, I've been an entrepreneur in the past personally, and that's always the biggest challenge, is you're like, I know these 3 things out of these 5 pillars that I need to make a successful business. And so it's that being a little bit more risk averse and saying, I don't want to lose my house because I miss here and I miss here. Yeah. There are solutions to help you fill that gap and that void. And I think that's such an amazing thing that you're bringing to the market.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we think so. And I think as a collective, we're just excited about it.
Yeah. And, you know, I will say you have one of the most talented like leadership teams that I've been around. I want to just touch on that a little bit, if you don't mind. And I know I said this was the last question, but I'm the host, so I get asked as many as I want.
You mean so like Otto goes them?
Yes. Explain to our listeners, like, just about your leadership team and how that kind of came together.
Wow. How long's this show?
Yeah.
Right now the leadership team is, interestingly enough, all female.
Yeah.
And with incredible backgrounds in this industry, and 20 collectively, all of them together, you know, over 70 years in the auto industry alone, from refi to, you know, GM Financial, Fifth Third, marketing in this industry alone.
Top 50 dealer groups, right?
Yeah, top 50 dealer groups. Just some very passionate women in this industry. Yeah. And we kind of, I said earlier, it's kismet, right? We kind of all found each other and really came together because they, too, wanted to make a difference for the independent dealer. One of them is married to a dealer. You know, actually 2 of them are. Mm-hmm. And one, interestingly enough, in Ireland, whose husband has a dealership. And so I think just collectively we felt like we could make some real changes and bring some difference to the independent space.
Yeah, and it's it is a unique, leadership council, and I love that you brought people together that, number one, they really do care about what you're bringing to market, and they just all happen to be female. I mean, I think that's such a unique story to tell, and I'm excited to, and we're gonna, luckily I'll get to have you on.
We like you guys, though.
That's good. Yes. I want to have another episode with you where we do talk about just kind of the benefits and the differences of being a woman in the auto industry. And, luckily, not only are you one, but you're surrounded by 70 years of female leadership in the auto industry. I think that's a really fascinating story that I want to tell.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, yeah, thank you so much for being on our show for this episode of AlphaTalk, specifically talking about AlphaMoto. So this is your chance to, if you're an independent dealer or even a franchise dealer, because you do have solutions for franchise.
Absolutely.
You just, you're providing that gap that maybe the independent dealer may not have. So tell our listeners where they can go if they want to learn more about DealFI, AlphaMoto. This is your chance to have a shameless plug.
OttoMoto.net, or you want me to give you my cell phone?
Yeah, you could do that too. Yes, it depends. Yeah, exactly.
It's AlphaMoto, playonwords.net, or DealFi.com.
Great. Well, and we look forward to continued success, even in the partnership that we have, but just in general, I think that you're really bringing something very amazing to these independent dealers. And I will tell you, the reason that Alpha is partnered with AlphaMoto is because we also serve a vast majority of independent dealers. That's how we started our business. We wouldn't be here without our independent dealers. So if you're an independent dealer and you have not talked to AlphaMoto, I would highly recommend. I don't do like product shout outs ever really, but I believe in what you're doing and why you're doing it. And there is 10% of the market. I know there's more. So prove me wrong that there's I want to see 10% more of the market doing better and being more successful. And I know that you guys will be that conduit for them.
Yeah, thank you.
AlphaTalk is an Alpha Warranty Services production. Learn more at alphawarranty.com.